So I think I'm gonna knock out a couple of these so I can put them on my tubes on the channel. Um, just came back from my physical therapy. So this is something that I actually wanted to talk about because I got into a long, like, issue on Facebook for days, really, and people are still like replying to my comment, even though I think I commented maybe like this time last week on a post from a news station in Baltimore. They were talking about how, I guess they're talking about charging, teenagers with as an adult for carjackings. And my thing was, what I initially said was gave an example of how um, I gave an example of a 11-year-old that had stole a truck or something like that and went joyriding for almost an hour, mind you. They was just riding behind him and everything. Uh, in the rural area, was well, in the deep burbs, and they weren't talking about charging this kid as an adult, or even like just from the how they even covered the story, the news. It was, I wouldn't say it was lighthearted, but just the response and how people were responding, and just the body language was like, it was serious, but it wasn't like, oh, this is just unacceptable. They're just how they do versus in the urban areas with things that happen, right? And so, man, I mean, just everybody, including some butter biscuit Negroes, was chiming in. Like nobody agreed with me at all. Even because at first people was like, well, it's a big difference from an 11-year-old to 16-year-old. And then basically what I was saying was I used that example. However, it's not the only situation or example that can be given where something, there's things that happen in the urban areas, but it seems to be like it doesn't catch fire and have that much attention by the media until it hits the urban areas. There's violent crimes such as rapes, carjackings, armed robberies, house invasions in the burbs, right? But only when it's in the urban areas it seems to be an issue. But people just was not like letting up. I mean, motherfuckers started calling me out my name, calling me racial epithets and stuff like that. Then somebody was like, mind your business, this is Baltimore, you don't live here, mind your business. I was like, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you comment on things that you see, especially I'm sure Chicago, you comment, you don't live there, but you still comment on things that you see is what's going on around the country. I say even before we had the internet, we had the newspaper. If it hit the newspaper, we read it. It wasn't necessarily, it was, if it was things that was not local, or if it was things that did not take place in that particular state that you're in reading the newspaper. I'm that old when the newspaper, before the internet, you dig what I mean? So, but I just had to keep going back and forth, back and forth. And like I said, it was some Negroes that was jumping in and, oh, but they 16. And, I'm just like, I had to break it down to one cat. I'm like, pretty much my initial comment was to show how there's never an issue until it's in the urban areas. And that, with this piece of legislation and what has happened, historically, and what you can see, and you can see the pattern, is that when you have laws, or when you're able to charge a child as an adult for things, they tend to more or less charge kids from urban communities. And then we kind of got into the whole black white, so it just kind of came out. So I said, well, you know what, because black kids or kids of color end up being charged more so for as an adult for the same crimes that white kids commit. So, of course, I'm not going to agree with that. It has been historically, it's a historical fact. And I'm just not going to agree with charging a kid as an adult for a carjacking that resulted in no bodily injury. No, like no, I said no death or severe bodily injuries. Meaning if a motherfucker wasn't like, they, got the arm broke, got broken ribs or something like that, like something really bad to where it's like they fucked up, they can't go to work no more, they paralyzed or something like that. No, I don't think that a child should be charged as such. Okay, and and it's for black people. And I said, I used to be that person where I used to say, yeah, we just need more police, we need stiffer laws. But when I got into really getting into the root of things that are underlining issues that's the cause of what you see now. Nothing, just putting more police or having stiffer penalties isn't going to change anything, because if you don't address those underlying issues, people are going to still go out and do what they do. And so therefore, you're just going to have more African Americans in jail that are younger and, as free labor and slaves on the back end for the same companies that's lobbying on the front end for these particular laws, right? Because they're gaining, they have gains on both ends, and on the front end and the back end, and then but people still just didn't understand it, and I'm like, well, you could take the crack era as a good example. Yeah, that shit was bad. And don't get me wrong, what's happening, that shit's fucked up. It's, it's really bad. I'm not taking away, I'm not saying that black people or black kids should not be persecuted or prosecuted or should not, wrong is wrong. If you, if you break the law, you need to do the time. That's fair, right? But, I gave the example of the crack era. Because at the same time, the crack era in the 80s was like at its peak. The gangs were at their peak. I mean, because the reason I'm bringing this up because people were just like, you just don't know, it's just out of control. And I'm like, hey, it was so bad. The crack and the gangs were so bad in the 80s. Motherfuckers was taking over whole fucking buildings. You know what I'm saying? Like, even y'all, y'all have seen the documentaries, or if you from Chicago, Capri Green, like, motherfuckers, that used to be a war zone. We had one, they were controlled by fucking gang members. It was bad. Motherfuckers shooting you, was target practicing. It was bad. It was really, really bad. Motherfuckers was dying in the street. People's babies coming out, like crack babies. It was all fucked up. It was all fucked up. People were making millions on the, millions, becoming millionaires, multi-millionaires overnight. But it was egregious. It was horrible. It was horrible. So, we, in our communities, we're seeing all of this because a lot of us, 99% of us don't see the game, right? So we're all, and that's of all education, and whatever. We're just like, oh my God, this is out of control. And this is in the 80s. Because I can see that was what happened then. That's what's happening now. Oh, it's out of control. We need stiffer laws, woo. So what they come out with, say no to drugs and all this other stuff. And they just put away a generation of black men. That's all they did to be slaves. And then they gave them egregious times, like just a time that just did not make sense. They were putting away crack. People who were addicted to the shit, okay? For like dumbass periods, 10, 20 years for being addicted to the shit, okay? Because you get caught with some crack, right? You the smoker, right? Now, and then, so you have that, and then what happened? There was a void, right? There was a void with, in our community. So then you had a lot of, that's when you had the first wave of like kids that were being raised. Really, really the highest, I would say at its highest, where people were getting born, kids were being raised without a lot of cases without their mom because their mom was addicted to crack, but more so where the men were gone. So now let's fast forward, 2 generations. Now we see the adverse effect of having all those men be gone doing 20, 30 years for a couple pieces of crack or some, maybe they was in a shootout or whatever, whatever, doing some gang activity. So now you telling me now, and people, we're not peeping game. So now, again, nothing really is done until that shit hits the urban communities. So now you have that, kids younger committing violent crimes. So now the media, who is owned by white people, are pushing, oh, let's charge them as adults too. Well, who the fuck you think is finna have more so be taxed with those laws, like we always have been? Every law, these laws that they've implemented for crime, different various crimes, the crime bill, all that shit. Who has been adversely affected? Our communities, black people. So guess what they're trying to do now? They're trying to get rid of, now they done got rid of the older men. They're finna try to get rid of the younger men, because the older men in the 80s, they had babies and shit. At least a large majority of them had babies. And it went on. So now they like, okay, we finna stop this shit before these motherfuckers even can get to having babies. So 15, 16, 17, we just finna charging these motherfuckers as adults. And even though, and on top of that, we finna charge them dumbass amounts of time that don't even fit the crime anyway. So you do a carjacking, we finna put you away for 20 years to make sure that you don't have any fucking children. So again, I don't understand why black people be behind this shit, because then what's going to end up happening is we ain't going to see the shit. We so blind to the underneath stuff. We too trusting and we just see the surface level. We don't see how impactful things can be. We don't look at all sides. We don't look at what can be the root effect, or what the root issues are and why these things are happening. That's one. And then what are the long-term adverse effects that could happen in our communities? So they have already started charging our youth with as adults in a lot of cases. But if this shit catches on like wildfire with just everything, now it's carjackings. Not to say that's not serious, but didn't nobody die? It's not like, oh, this kid killed somebody. You dig what I mean? It's a carjacking. It's like motherfucker go rob the gas station and shit. So what you gonna start doing? I could just see that happening. Well, just everything. Everything that is done that more or less black people do, like armed robbery, rob a convenience stores and shit like that. They more so want to charge us. They're going to start charging as adults so they can get rid of the youth. Because when all of them is locked up, then they can't breed. Then you're going to have, 10, 20 years down the line, couple that with, you have, because of various things, including, not just media and, stuff, but you have, I always say this, you have, things in our environment and stuff that's breeding this, that's, babies are being born like this and pre-polluted. You're going to have, so you have that boom of gender association behavior disorder that's happening now. So just think, coupled with that, not to say that, a lot of the people within the LGBTQP, whatever the fuck, don't breed or don't have children, but not at the same rate. It's probably it's like 50. I would say like 50, maybe 50, half of them do, right? Or because either they have babies or already had babies before they came out or whatever. But you just look at down the line, 20 years from now, what our communities are going to look like as far as babies, population. Because it trying to me, it looks like they're trying their best to get rid of all the teens too. The more teens they can get into these facilities and give them dumbass 10, 20, 30 years for robbing a convenience corner store for $100 and nobody got hurt. They're going to, charge them 20, 30 years and shit. So they're in there so that they don't breed and they have free or very low cost slave labor. And then they get to also win in the stock market, because all of these private prisons is on the stock market. So it just seems like it's slavery by another name. So it's like and I, like I said, black people, we only look at the surface. We don't understand until after. Like now, people my age and older are now looking back like, oh damn, that we do see the trap. We do see that because why didn't we question why the fuck where the fuck all this cocaine and crack, where the fuck this shit come from all of a sudden? It wasn't in a crack wasn't the thing, in the 70s and the 60s. Where the fuck did all this dope come from? There wasn't an outcry and a backlash and a like we're from a collective. Asking what's the roots of this? What happened? Why is it all of a sudden where the fuck is all this crack and where's all this cocaine coming from? We didn't do that. We were just like, God damn, these niggas is out of control. They robbing, they shooting and shit. Motherfuckers, bullets is flying through my house. God damn, we just need more police. They need to go away. And we never, like I said, we're honest, we see in the game now. We a lot of us is waking up like, oh shit, that's called propaganda, and that's how they manipulated us into, it's that I always say the puppet and the puppet master. Like you don't see that shit. You just see what you see. You don't see the puppet master. You just see the puppet. You just see what's going on. You don't see the hands and shit that's controlling and manipulating shit. You see what I'm saying? So we waking up now to like, damn, they got us. Like that shit was a setup. They flooded our communities with that fucking cocaine shit to fight an illegal war in South America. They put that shit in our communities on fucking purpose. And then, so they was making money off of the shit, bringing the shit in, and then making more money off of the prisoners. So, yeah. So, you know what I mean? So there was a win all the way around. And then on top of that, you had single mothers. You had a population. So now just not only you're making all types of profits, you're making profits on the front end by them selling the dope. Then you have the profits on the back end where you have people in prison. And then on top of that, you have, you fuck up their family structure. So now the family structure is messed up. And now we're seeing the adverse effects of that. I ain't even gonna go down that rabbit hole, but a lot of things, a lot of the mindset now with the youth and what a lot of things that we do in our communities, especially with the females and the males, would not have taken place had they didn't take away all the men. And they first tried that, the first phase was for welfare, because it was like, a man can't be here. But like I said, putting that crack in that 80 in the gangs, that was like, it was very effective, right? What they say, silent wars, man, silent wars. Okay, you don't know, you can't see it because it's not in your face. And black people, we have a tendency not to really think deeply about a lot of shit. We really trust the same system that has a historical pattern of doing things covertly and overtly that adversely affect our people, whether it's individually or collectively. And then you still trust their propaganda machines to tell you that your people ain't shit, and so that you can be like, yeah, we did stuff for laws. And don't get me wrong, I was that person, and I'm no way educated at all. I don't consider myself educated. I got a dumbass degree. I don't consider myself educated by no far stretch, but just the information I've come across from credible sources like that have people with degrees in criminology and do all that shit, like Alexander Shimei or whatever her name was, that wrote a lot of information about the prison industrial complex. People who are credible, people where they've data harvesting, collected all this information and wrote books and papers on this shit. I dibble and dabble and read a little here and there and stuff so to enough to the point where I can go back with my logic that I naturally have and start like, oh, I see what they did. Oh, okay, now I see. So now I'm gonna watch out for that. I'm going to think about what they're telling me about my own people, because there's no way that they're ever going to tell me anything positive about my people. And so, so if they're coming at me, and like this is some type of outcry and this is just out of control, what's the underlying lining motive behind why they're doing that? We all know that in general, that white people do not get charged, or they do not have as much time for the same crimes that black people commit. So you mean to tell me you mad at me because I don't agree with charging a 16-year-old as an adult for carjacking that does not result in death or severe bodily harm? So that y'all can give him, because it's more likely a boy, so you can give him 20 years for a carjacking, and the only thing he did was brandish the gun, and the person got out the car, and they jumped in the car and went joyriding. So you can put him away. He don't have no kids, so he doesn't have any kids. Way we can. That's one of your other ways to try to quail the reproduction of black bodies. You want me to agree with that? And like I said, it was some black people that was like, well, it's just out of control. Just like, are you serious? What are the root causes? What's going on? It's just no different than the root cause. Ghettos are created, man. All this shit is, you think these people, this is why they're building, they can build prisons. You think they don't have, thought machine, think tanks and analysts that's, they know how much crime is going to be, because you have all these types of social issues. Not whether it's poor education, our communities are messed up on purpose in various ways, from funds and resources. It's intentional, because it's a cause and effect thing. They want that shit to happen. So, in the education, you have broken homes, you have a lot of things that are going on. I remember when I was a teen and I was in a group, and we went to talk to the city commissioners about getting funding for, activities for teenagers at the fucking local parks on the north side in Minneapolis. So this is not something that just happened. Like, they're doing this shit on purpose. Like, why would you not, like, and now in hindsight, like, why would you not, why would the people have to come to you to ask you to put funding for the teenagers so that they can have something to do, so they can stay out of trouble? It's almost like you want them to, you causing certain conditions, because if there's certain conditions that you cause, the effect will be crime and things like that. And then on top of that, you have shitty ass jobs that pay shitty ass wages that have stayed stagnant for 3 or 4 decades while everything has gotten expensive. You think people just like, I even have a Facebook friend that was on live the other day, and I was just like, oh my fucking God, motherfuckers is tired. Like, you got old people my age, like fucking tired people waking up, and it's across the board, really. That's, you have even white folks saying like, man, like, me to tell me I'm supposed to work, till I'm 6, 7, and then the average, age of it's like of death is like 75, 78. So I'm just gonna, work till then at this shitty ass job to where I'm not exactly, where the poverty guideline is, but I'm not making enough to where I can even, pay for medical expenses or pay for diabetic insulin and shit like that. You have people that are making $40,000-$50,000 a year that are going without their insulin or rationing out that shit. So you have a systemic issue where these corporations and these people, conglomerates, are sucking the fucking money, to hoarding the money at the top, not paying people what is worth, not, And what they agreed upon when they all started this whole scam about now you have to have a degree 50 years ago, you know what I'm saying, about how you have to have a degree to be in these jobs. And I would assume that was the reason why for the most, some of that was, the kickbacks on the back end that the employer would get for, these people that will get these, these degrees. But also you got to keep up with the fucking inflation. And then you have our own legislators and politicians that's going along with the shit. How the poverty guideline is like, 30,000 or some shit, like, no, that shit should be like poverty per how you guys have it structured, because you're not holding these companies accountable for paying livable wages. That poverty guidelines, like the poverty got, max should be like 50,000 or something like that now, to make it look. And I'm not no financial analyst, but I'm probably gotta ask somebody, like, just kind of how I would say it probably would be 50,000, just to go off of, like, if you take, you know, um, inflation and things, and kind of, how the dollar stretches now. Yeah, like, it's unbelievable. So you have all of these particular conditions, everything that are happening in the hood, that some are causes that are intentional, and then, or, things that are actions that are intentional, and you have these effects, and then all of a sudden you have this outcry. They know that shit's gonna happen. So, it's like you set a seed, and then you let people, let that seed, flourish in them weeds, and they turn into weeds, and people start complaining about the weeds, but you knew that them seeds was a weeds. You didn't say anything, and then you're like, oh, I see your weeds. I can get rid of your weeds for you, but you knew that shit was weeds in the beginning. So that was my thing. Like, it was just kind of messed up, like how people just kept, and it was like, I mean, that shit went on for days. Like I said, people are still commenting on it. Like, why would I do that? No, because I see the root cause. First, let's start with why these things are happening. Why crime happens? Why is there so much crime in certain areas? Let's address those particular issues. Because if not, it doesn't matter how many laws you put on the books. It doesn't matter if it's illegal. People are still going to do it. You got people that are in their 40s talking about, tired, of doing the right thing and struggling, making $40,000-$50,000 a year, and they're looking like, man, they need some fast fucking money. So just think, what these youth ain't got no education or nothing, and they like, damn, and then you got the media that's enticing people, and your commercials and shit. You think everybody want to look nice and smell good, and want the fancy car, want to go drink, want to power and have fun. I feel like it's they say, well, don't stop living above your means, but in my profession, it's a lot of you, by my professional opinion, per my profession, a lot of y'all are living beyond your means. Even if you make $70,000, your DTI is real fucked up. Okay, a lot, not everybody. So I want it. Well, not me, because I pay my credit card bills off on time. My credit score is 800. Not you. The vast majority of Americans are, though. Even and it's more so in communities of color, definitely. Y'all, yeah. So yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about. Like, I'm not fit to be gung ho for that shit, because I know at the root of that, I seen this before. Like, I see that this happened before. So I don't even think, like I said, I don't feel like a child should be charged as an adult unless it's a crime that results in death, and it's until someone dies. Okay, that's when if it's death, or for me, and I'm to me it's like child molestation too, but that's a whole other, raping children. It's just not, to me. I just think you should just be put to death. But nevertheless, but at least that's what I feel like. Then you should be charging kids as an adult, or teens as adults. They run around here fucking arresting 7-year-olds for fucking pushing the teacher talking about assault. They're in certain, I think it's Kansas or Missouri, where it's like now they like you getting charged as assault if you fight in school. They're setting this shit up. I'm trying to tell you, they're doing little tests around the country. They're trying to get rid of the youth too. If you can get, if you can get rid of the youth, as much of the youth as possible, won't be nobody left to breed. And we get to make some money off of some cheap labor and stocks. So no, I see that. I see where this is going. So no, I don't. I don't, and I won't. No. And people are like, well, what if used car put you? I'm like, shit. I've had that happen. I'm from an urban area. I don't live in it. I mean, that's happened before. I've been around guns. Shit. I'd be scared the police would pull a fucking gun on me because they do it for nothing. And fuck what you say. They do that shit for nothing. Really. So, some of them do it to be assholes, and they be power tripping and shit. That's a whole nother story. So no, like, yeah, nah, no. I see what they did, and I see it consistently happening. Like that's how you use the media, and because they already have a negative connotation behind being black anyway. And they present black men in general as being criminals to using you project this among the people and the world by using their media, because you can't do heinous things and unjust things against the people that you have to, or a person that until you actually make them look less than human to the world or to other people. I give you something else, like, and you can pattern that in everything. I just heard of a case where some little boy was getting touched on in the bathroom at his daycare, but the person that was touching him was making it seem like he was always the bad kid and he needed a timeout and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that concept can be implemented in different areas. You can't do egregious things or do things to people that until you make them less than human. You portray them as deserving first. That's why and they do that all. That's why you rarely hear positive shit about black men in the media unless it's some football player giving out turkeys or fucking paying off people's layaways during Christmas and shit like that. But the average news is always some black motherfucker on there committing a crime of some sort. Most of the time. I'm talking about your average Joe. And when I grew up, there was a show that like a segment, I forgot the name of it, but they showcased children, kids that were young, that were, kind of excelling, and they, did all these different little things in the community or whatever. As they was getting all these, was smart, getting all these good grades, and they were, maybe, mentoring and going to feed the soup kitchens, and, maybe had a parent that was paralyzed or whatever, and they had to help with them. And it was always a white person. That was when I grew up. There was always a white person. I never, as I was a kid, never seen them showcase a black person, even though there's plenty of black people. Now I know there's plenty of black kids that could have been on there that made good grades and still did things in their community, or maybe had to help. Maybe, their mama may have had diabetes and had some foot took off, a foot, a leg or something, and they had to help at the house. And there's black kids but me growing up with that made me too, because remember, just how white folks are programmed by the media to think that they're above us and we're like shit. We get programmed too to think that our own people is shit. And so that was the thing I got programmed with. Well, I didn't see any black people, so we must be shit. Because only time I see something about a black person doing something positive is a, some type of famous person doing some, some charity work to make, for PR purposes. You know, never really, showcasing people in the community, or nothing like that. So it was like, oh, okay, well, we ain't shit either. We must be, and then, in the movies we're portrayed as gangbangers or something like. Most of the movies, that shit irritates me too. Like a lot of movies are either gangbangers. You got Sharkeisha, she a single mom trying to raise her kids, doing the best she can. She has aspirations and dreams, or some hood shit. Just like how they do with Africans, they're always warlords and things like that. I mean, most of the time they're, warlords or something, or they showing, it's all dirty and, kids is dirty. Look at the little stomachs and shit like that. You think that is not, I mean, the evidence is on the wall, yet you think that there is not some underlying motives that's going on. That is a global partnership, to be perfectly honest. That, but you think like TV programming is manipulate. It's fact that television is television. They used to call it television programming. Okay, so they even used to hide subliminal messages. True fucking story in the programs, the TV programs that used to come on, and they probably still do that shit now, but we just don't know it. But there's a lot of subliminal things that is done in media. And you know what? I really think, to be perfectly honest, I feel like there should be a class action lawsuit for most media outlets around the country. And I wish if I had the money, I would like hire like an army of people to, go back 100 years even for the media, and document kind of how they have um, how they've negatively portrayed, and they have been a strong, what's the word I'm looking for? A strong instigator and manipulator of the minds, and and an instigator of violence and racism and prejudices and things like that. They have, because they're the ones who can they have will the power to make or break you, even like in like celebrities, like they some bad shit come out, they have, what I'm saying. So they move the minds of the people. And so I wish I had money, because I would do the research, and then I would bring about class action lawsuits, because the media is at the root of how they have conditioned the minds of the people on both sides, on all sides. They're at the root. Anyway, oh, I gotta plug my phone up. I gotta go.